They were almost dead. Yes, after Snow White was a total disaster at the box office, Disney blinked and they put live action Tangled on hold as they seemed to lose their nerve. But then, right afterwards came Lilo and Stitch, which has been a huge hit. It's a record-breaking opening weekend, the biggest ever for Memorial Day, and it's now surfing towards $1 billion. So, Disney live action adaptations are back! Even DreamWorks is starting to get in on the action, which I'm sure is also lighting a competitive fire under the mouse. Now, it seems the lesson here isn't quality or faithfulness to the source material. Lilo and Stitch, the two movies, couldn't be more different. But I think the key here is relatability of the material, the nostalgia factor. Snow White came out in 1937, and let's face it, has not been a popular film for decades. In fact, name a Disney princess less popular. I'll wait. I'm sure a few Snow White stans are like, how dare you? But you have to admit your numbers are few. Now, I'm not going to pretend Snow White, the live action film, didn't have a ton of other problems, but I think that one is key. So as Hollywood begins to mine, they were all about the 80s for a while, but now they're getting into the 90s and 2000s. Lilo and Stitch being a prime example of the riches at stake. And I believe there's plenty more gold in the Disney vault beyond the Disney Renaissance, which Disney has already done. They are probably like, what else do we have? They have so much. Because yes, some of these animated films that we're about to go over didn't do too well at the box office at first, but they've been around for decades again at this point, and they have, I think, grown extensively in popularity over the years. A Goofy movie is a prime example of that. So I think if they can realize that they have a chance to realize the riches they're truly sitting on if they're willing to take some risks. I don't know if Lilo and Stitch is that big of a risk because Stitch is so popular from a brand perspective, but I think there are a couple other choices here that could really work. Also, speaking of Stitch, if he could be successfully rendered in live action, then anything is possible. For a long time, the rule was that a story went animated if you couldn't do it in live action, like The Beast in Beauty and the Beast, or a mermaid in The Little Mermaid. But of course, VFX has really closed that gap and made the live action adaptation of these animated movies possible. So I think there were still some spaces where you're like, I don't know if we could do it, but Stitch is a resounding success. Even if I didn't like the live action movie that much, I thought Stitch was incredibly well rendered. So here's my list of the top 10 Disney animated films that the studio could still adapt to live action next. Moana doesn't count because they're already doing that. That's already in the pipeline. So as we go over my list, I'm not only excited to hear your feedback on my thoughts, but also which Disney animated movies you'd like to see in live action and which ones you wouldn't. Before we start with number 10, that's right, number 10, I've heard you. I know you guys like a good countdown. You don't like to start at the top. You like the anticipation to build. But I also want to take a moment to ask you to subscribe to this channel. Not only are we going to keep an eye on how Lilo and Stitch does at the box office, you want to be around when we celebrate it hitting $1 billion, but we have so many great movies to cover this summer. I'll be reviewing them, talking about their box office performance, and then also doing deep dives like this video. So be sure to hit that subscribe button and the like button as well. All right, so number 10, Fantasia. Sure, Fantasia harkens back to Walt's earliest days, where he was interested in portraying animation as an art form, even as he built an entertainment empire. Fantasia was also an educational endeavor, as Walt sought to bring some of the greatest classical music of all time to the masses in his trademark packaging. They did try to bring Fantasia back, I believe in 2000, but it didn't really work out so well. But I like my idea better. But ultimately, even Walt had to admit that the masses weren't that interested in animation as high art. Sleeping Beauty, my favorite, by the way, of his animated films, but that's probably his most artistic endeavor. And it was extremely successful. But even as successful as it was, to create something that artistic and that bold, he couldn't turn a profit on it because it ended up being so expensive. Now, sure, Disney Animation still went on to earn a Best Picture nomination thanks to the artistry of Beauty and the Beast, R.I.P. Howard Ashman. But that's not Fantasia levels of artistry, not just in the artistry of the animation, but in the treatment of the actual product. You know, Beauty and the Beast is still a very commercial film, whereas Fantasia is more a work of art. However, at a time when Christopher Nolan has made blockbusters more auteur, and filmmakers like Ryan Coogler and Denis Villeneuve have successfully followed in his footsteps, and also Greta Gerwig was able to put a nod to Gene Kelly in the Barbie movie, and all these films are making premium screens heralded as canvases for cinematic masterpieces that audiences are appreciating, well, I think it might be time for Disney to bring back Fantasia as a live-action VFX hybrid. And it gets even better, because speaking of these directors, what if Disney could get named directors, both established and up-and-coming, like The Substances, Coralie Farge, or The Brutalists, Brady Corbett, to direct the different segments with, again, a mix of live-action and extensive VFX. A new live-action Fantasia on IMAX? I believe that's extremely doable, especially if we keep the budget down below, like, let's say $150. Number 9, The Black Cauldron. Ooh, I bet some of you are starting to get excited about this list. The possibilities. Now, there are two great experimental periods in Disney animation, and that's before and after the Disney Renaissance, when the studio was really trying to figure out their way forward. You know, under Walt, they had a strong directive, and then again, the Disney Renaissance was really clear cut. But they weren't quite sure where to go before and after that. And they had some real misses, but some bullseyes as well. And The Black Cauldron, it's actually in the middle. It's not a total miss, but it's not a bullseye either. In fact, story-wise, the movie is an absolute mess. I recently tried to rewatch it, and I couldn't make it past 15 minutes. I was like, whew! However, the film is famous for its darker tone, especially for a Disney film, and some truly stunning animation. Now, Don Bluth had already left Disney at this point to create his own animation studio, highly regarded by, talk about nostalgia. Somebody should go and mine that. That would be incredible. But The Black Cauldron has a similar style to Don Bluth, and it's very evocative of that darker, more experimental period in animation. And it has real name recognition with Disney fans and animation fans. And since The Black Cauldron was released, of course, we've had Lord of the Rings and Game of Thrones, all hugely popular. So a live-action family version, I think, could be quite successful, like How to Train Your Dragon with fairy tale elements. It's actually a blessing that the animated film is such a mess story-wise, because that means there's nowhere to go but up for the live-action adaptation. They could significantly rework it, going back to the original source material, and also bring back the scenes that test audiences found so dark and disturbing that Jeffrey Katzenberg ordered them cut from the final film. Talk about a selling point! Number 8, Treasure Planet. If you're a Disney animation fan from this time period, you are geeking out right now. And I feel others could be brought on board. So this was another fantastic idea that was only executed so-so, but that doesn't mean it still doesn't have tremendous potential. See on either side of Lilo and Stitch. Lilo and Stitch was a hit in theaters even when it was released. Not like the Disney Renaissance films, but it did well. But it was bookended by two films that did not do so well, but that really captivated the children that did go to see them. And those children have grown up to be adult fans of the material. And that's why you see these movies pop up here and there, in Disney, it's like an Easter egg and everybody gets really excited. These movies have the potential to blow up like a Goofy movie is blowing up. So one is Treasure Planet. It's a take on Treasure Island, obviously, but in space. This is an incredible idea, and you would think, as an animated movie where the only limit is really one's imagination, there's the budget, obviously, but even within the confines of its budget, this movie didn't go as hard as it could have. Still, it had very good ideas on how to adapt the story from sea to space and some very nice world building. Heck, you could even bring back most of the original cast to reprise their roles, which I think would be fantastic. I mean, Pirates of the Caribbean has been a huge hit for Disney as a film franchise. And here's Disney's opportunity to do alien pirates in space, which could not only lead to another hit franchise, but could potentially, work, backdoor into a new attraction. I think it's a fantastic idea. Much like in the film, Treasure Planet is a map to riches for Disney if they're willing to do the hard work and take the risks to follow that map. Did you see Treasure Planet? Back me up here. And on that note, if you saw Treasure Planet, I bet you know what the other bookend movie is. Number 7, Atlantis The Lost Empire. What a time for Disney! While at that time, Lilo and Stitch was sandwiched between two flops, I think Disney fans today see nothing but 3 bangers. Although, unlike Treasure Planet, this film is ready to go. In fact, it plays almost like a film that was originally live action that had been adapted into animation. It has all human characters and VFX-heavy action sequences, and it feels even more like one of the Mummy movies from back in the day than a Disney animated film. Milo and Kita have become a fan favorite couple, huge with fans who geek out hardcore whenever they make a surprise appearance at the theme parks. The film also has a fantastic supporting cast and one heck of a femme fatale that Disney Live Action could cast the heck out of. They could have a lot of fun with that. But despite the love of fans, this still in the material, I still don't think this is a slam dunk, because what hurt it back in the day is what could hurt it now, and that's that it doesn't have what people want to see from Disney. It's not a musical, it's not a fantasy, it's more of a sci-fi film. So that's why it's still lower down on this list. The Emperor's New Groove also came out around the same time. That's not only a fan favorite as well, but one of my personal favorites. Boom, baby! However, I didn't put it on this list at all because I feel the cast is integral to making it work. David Spade, John Goodman, Patrick Warburton. I believe they've all aged out of these roles, and they're 3 white guys playing South Americans. And as good as this film is, it's amazing, you couldn't do that today. Also, Eartha Kitt. Yzma is one of her greatest achievements. R.I.P. Eartha Kitt. I mean, there are a lot of talented actors today, but not only I don't think anybody could top this original cast, but I wouldn't even want to see them try. I feel it would be sacrilegious. Number 6, Encanto. Now, this one's pretty low down as well. You might think this would be higher up, but that's because it's already perfect. I'm not quite sure what live action could bring to this. I'd rather see Disney focus on an animated Encanto 2 than try and do a live action remake. But, Disney's all about having their cake and eat it too. Just look at what they're doing with Moana. Just had an animated sequel, and they're going to still go back to the original story in live action. Now, Encanto was a huge hit. Disney's currently working to very quickly to bring it to the theme parks, which I'm so excited about. And I'm sure at some point, if not already, a Disney suit has said, how about live action? Lin-Manuel Miranda is live action, right? Although apparently bad luck for his projects when he's actually on screen himself. But, that could be tempting to actually have him be able to appear in it. Would he be Bruno? I don't know if that would work. Again, but what about John Leguizamo, right? But I mean, Latino audiences are becoming more and more powerful at the box office. So again, that's an argument to do a live action version of Encanto. But besides John Leguizamo fighting it out with Lin-Manuel Miranda, I guess, who would they cast, right? Like, would they be able to do as good a job as the actors who did the voice cast for the animated film? But those actors aren't particularly famous. Sorry to those of you who are fans of some of them, but I don't know if they could sell a movie. Also, again, I don't really know how you could expand the film further in live action. It's perfect. I don't think people want to see anyone mess with Encanto. So I think in some ways, if you did a live action version of it, it would just seem like a stage show. So, I mean, this is an incredibly powerful IP, and I'm sure there's lots more Encanto to come from Disney in many of their divisions. But I don't see a clear path forward in the live action space. What do you think? Number 5, Mickey Mouse, DuckTales, and Winnie the Pooh. Why are they all one category? Well, I'm putting them under the category of moves merchandise. So let's go through it. Now, when it comes to Mickey Mouse, does Disney dare? This seems like a really tough one. This is their Mount Everest. I mean, Disney has been extremely protective of Mickey Mouse from day one. Even Walt was like, don't touch him, because he's their most iconic character. He's the brand. I mean, they do use him occasionally. His new animated series has gone over pretty well. And they got Stitch right. Could they bring Mickey Mouse to life in live action? I'm sure there's a Disney executive somewhere who is wondering that, even maybe if it's secretly. And would it be a fully CGI live action animated movie like The Lion King and Mufasa, or a hybrid with human characters like Lilo and Stitch? If you go full CGI, you could do something like Mickey's Christmas Carol, which was a fantastic endeavor, although Mickey wasn't the lead, and that's one of the reasons that it worked. Now, speaking of ducks, do you do a live action DuckTales maybe? You know, live action the way Lion King is live action. With Scrooge McDuck and Company? That's kind of exciting. Disney has always had more leeway with the ducks, and also Goofy, although I think Goofy would be very difficult to translate to CGI live action. But maybe. If you want to do a hybrid, though, between a CGI and live action, just like Lilo and Stitch does, you know, a little girl and her alien, how about a little boy and his bear? That's right, Winnie the Pooh. Now, Disney already tried this, but just like with Snow White, they went too far back in time. 1930s, 1940s, too removed for today's audiences. They should have built off the version of the character that they made a household name. Stitch is so successful. I'm sure as a movie that Disney is looking at what other merchandise-driving characters they could bring into live action. And I looked it up, and Mickey Mouse and Friends still sell a lot of merch, Winnie the Pooh, and then also DuckTales has been extremely popular over the years. Itself, rebooted recently for the Disney Channel. So it's got 2 animated versions. Is a live action version next? Number 4, Tangled. This one was so close to actually happening. Disney was signing contracts. They had a director. But then Snow White glitched and they blinked. They got really nervous and they put it on hold. Now, maybe Disney was like, oh, we're making the exact same mistakes with Tangled as we did with Snow White. And if that was the case, then yes, slow your roll, but don't stop. To me, the biggest hurdle, though, here is doing Rapunzel's hair realistically in live action. Not just the believability of its existence and movability, but its practicality. When the animated movie came out, there were a lot of funny jokes about how in real life her hair would be not only a mess, but very, very dirty. So I don't know if those questions could be ignored if you translate the character to live action. Animation, you just pretend it's not a problem, but in live action, I think it would occur to more people. Also, speaking of Snow White, to modernize that story, the live action version unfortunately borrowed very heavily from Tangled. And so it might be a while before they can adapt Tangled without bringing to mind Snow White. And I'm sure Disney would like everyone to just forget Snow White. Tangled was Disney's first computer animated fairy tale, and while it did only moderately well in theaters, over the years it has grown its fan base considerably. Thanks not just to the original film, but a 2D animated series that ran for quite a while and did very well, and leaned heavily into more action elements for the story and introduced some great new characters. So there's definitely something here. Speaking of great characters, Mother Gothel is definitely a fan favorite villain, and a lot of fans are like, Catherine Hahn, who of course is already a witch for Disney. But Donna Murphy, who voiced and did the singing for the original character, is not only a Broadway legend, but she's still alive and working. She's in the Gilded Age. So how do you bench Donna Murphy? I don't know if you could get around that, but I don't know if Donna Murphy would be a draw for non-Broadway fans. And also, let's not forget that Zachary Levi, of course, voiced Flynn Rider in the movie and the animated series. And he's in a very different place in his career right now, and a very vocal one. And so I don't know if Disney wants him bad-mouthing the film constantly when he's probably not involved. So yeah, this one has become a little bit, speaking of tangled. But it's still very high up on my list because it's just so popular with fans of all ages. And it's a fairy tale. People love those fairy tales. Number 3, Hercules. Here it is. Everyone is so excited about a live action adaptation of this film. And in fact, the Russo brothers are already on it. They seem to have had to put a pin in it because they have to hopefully save Marvel. I don't know if I'd bench Hercules for that. Can't they just keep an eye on it while someone else takes the charge? This isn't a fairy tale, and it wasn't a huge hit back in the day. But the reason this is so high up on my list, and almost everyone else's, is that it's an incredible musical. Just banger after banger after banger. And the songs are not only incredible, but their staging is amazing. And they could be leveled up even more so in live action. I mean, there's many singers have already been campaigning to play Meg, because it's that kind of role and song. And can you imagine bringing Hades into live action with the blue flame hair? It would look incredible. Now, the voice cast here did a very nice job, but fans, there's nobody here that fans are absolutely married to, or that I think anyone would be offended if you recast. So the movie is extremely castable. Now, of course, there's James Woods, who is, mega conservative these days and very active on social media, but I feel he's a little bit more professional than Zachary Levi. And I think he might make a comment or two, but I don't think he would crusade against the film like Levi might. And you know what? Why don't you cast fellow conservative Vince Vaughn, who isn't fighting with anyone right now and maybe might work a little bit better, and it wouldn't look like Disney was turning against its conservative fan base. It just wanted to go with someone a little bit more friendly like Vince Vaughn over James Woods. And everybody thinks already that Vince Vaughn would be a great Hades. Hercules was also a story of celebrity. And in today's age of social media, I think this version of Hercules is not only more timely than ever, but the references can be updated in really funny ways. Number 2, The Nightmare Before Christmas. That's right. I'm going for it. Here's my pitch. You want a project that moves merchandise? I give you the Nightmare Before Christmas. It is both a Halloween movie and a Christmas movie. Ka-ching! And talk about a hit musical. Danny Elfman knocked this one out of the park, as he usually does. And I think many fans, and even non-fans, would be eager to see the musical numbers in live action. This is Halloween. It's already sold. Big hit. Now, obviously, the big hurdle is how do you bring Jack Skellington into live action? Well, they're getting pretty good at bringing him into the theme parks. And again, if they can do Stitch, I think they can find a way to do Jack. And also, since he's a living skull, this role would be, I think, really an interesting challenge for an actor. A lot of great physicality. You know who I'm thinking? Mr. Hugh Jackman. Disney, of course, already has his number. He loves musicals. They're his one true love. And I think he's one of the few actors out there who has a shot at matching Danny Elfman's vocals for the songs. Danny Elfman, of course, is the singing voice of Jack Skellington. Sally would also be a hugely coveted role. And you could have the original actors in cameos here and there. The Nightmare Before Christmas is not only insanely popular, but it's one of the few IPs that Disney has managed to hold back on and control themselves with a little bit. So it's there, but it's not everywhere. So I think there's a lot of pent-up demand. And again, it's a Halloween and a Christmas movie. You release it in theaters for Halloween, and then it hits digital and Disney Plus by the time Christmas rolls around. I mean, it's so fantastic. I would be on the phone with Hugh Jackman right now. Number 1, Frozen. Wait a minute. Aren't they already working on Frozen animated movies 3 and 4? Well, people didn't love Frozen 2 so much. I mean, it still made $1 billion, right? But they didn't love it so much. And Jennifer Lee had to step down as the head of Disney Animation because she was making a mess out of it. So, and by the way, they're also doing a live action Moana just as they continue to further the story in animation. So there's a precedent that's been set. I worry about Frozen 3 and 4, and I feel that Disney would be better off maybe holding those off a little bit, although I think they're probably pretty far along at this point. But I think they would re-strengthen the Frozen brand if they had a really, like a home run live action Frozen adaptation. Frozen is a juggernaut. 2 billion-dollar movies, multiple theme parks, a Broadway show, and a blizzard of merchandise. The promise of Let It Go in live action, Elsa's snow powers, and her transformation, again, all in live action, I think are enough to sell the movie alone, just like This Is Halloween in live action. Plus, there's Wicked. What are you going to do about Wicked, Disney? Frozen, of course, is inspired by the hit Broadway show, even yoink borrowing Idina Menzel. And for a while, it eclipsed the Wizard of Oz prequel. Everyone was talking about Frozen, but Wicked fought back with what? A live action adaptation, 2 of them, and it has become huge. And I think now it's been flipped and it's kind of eclipsed Frozen a little bit because it's a live action fairy tale. And it's helping Universal to challenge Disney's dominance. And so how can Disney fight back? with a live-action fairy tale of their own that's at the same level. You've got two princesses, the lovable Kristoff, and of course, a cute CGI character in Olaf, who I think would transition very well to CGI live action, just as Stitch has. Josh Gad would certainly return. But I'm not sure about everybody else. Again, they can have cameos. I would maybe say, you aged out of the roles to kind of give me an excuse. And I love the original cast, but I'm looking for Ariana Grande level talent here to really blow this thing up. Although I do like Anya Taylor-Joy. She doesn't work enough. It took me too long to come up with her name. Anya Taylor-Joy as Elsa. But, she can sing. She was in that Edgar Wright movie. But I just think a live-action Frozen would be a huge hit. And it would actually, I think, as I said, re-strengthen the IP. Because, again, fans weren't crazy about Frozen 2. Although they seem to never tire still of Elsa, Anna, and Olaf. All right, so that's my list of the top 10 Disney animated films that I think the studio should seriously consider adapting to live action. What do you think of my rankings? I was pretty bold on some of them. I'm curious to hear your own thoughts and what films you think would you not only champion for live action, but which ones you think would be sacrilegious to do so. Again, share those thoughts down below, subscribe today, and of course, as always, you can check out some more videos right now.